in this little book right here. So it's a chance for me to say, like, how did it come about? What was its meaning? What was its intention? Why does it look like it? How is it related to other things? So that's what I'm going to do. I'll use up, a bunch of these post-it, these flip charts, and one of these days debug. Now, I'm absolutely thrilled. It was the rarest thing in the world to find a programmer who programs the same way I do. So I never expected that. I said, I need a programmer who's bulletproof. And various of my friends, I love the program, I love the program. And I go, yeah, you're not good enough, you're not good enough, you're not good enough, right? I need someone who is bulletproof, and unfortunately, the kryptonite bullet found him today because the display projector doesn't work or something. But crazy, when we started programming and he was programming, he was doing all the same stuff the way I like it. I never get to see that. This is very old school, early 1990s, Kent Beck, design patterns, style of programming. And then I learned from him some stuff about interfaces. But interestingly, as we were going through the hexagonal architecture pattern, he found some things that he had misunderstood or understood differently. So we learned from each other about the programming and about the design pattern itself and what it means. In particular, what is this thing called a port, right, that everybody wonders about? And he said, no, that's just an interface. In C# or something, it's just an interface. And I went, oh, that was easy. So that's the answer. You can leave now, go get yourself a beer, because that's the answer. You all were waiting for is what's a port? It's an interface. Done. Right? So now I'm going to start, and so this is the sketch of my talk. There's 4 parts. Why a hexagon? Inside of that there's little diversions. How do you name a design pattern? The answer is it must be a noun. It's a property. So things like dependency injection, they're nice names, but they're not properties. So the name is going to be configurable dependency. I'll go over the early uses of it. So like how it kind of evolved into a thing. Then I have to talk about a pizza shop. I'll talk about a pizza shop to get an understanding of what is this thing, ports, and why do we care about ports. And then we have to dip quickly into use cases and talk about primary and secondary actors, because much though I've tried to make this thing perfectly symmetric. That's why it's one of the reasons it's a hexagon. It's not symmetric. There's a left side and a right side. And I fought this, and I fought it, and I fought it, and I finally gave up. There's an asymmetry, and it maps to primary actors and secondary actors. So if you know what those are, life's easy. If you don't, you'll get the tutorial. And then we'll talk about today's kata, which is about producing poetry. So at least better than numbers, Thomas decided to produce some poetry, so he's going to make a poetry reader for us. So that's the table of contents for the talk. And some of this I'll draw live, but a couple of these things were, this one was kind of just wordy, so I just wrote it up there. A little bit about design patterns. Christopher Alexander came up with this thing called design patterns for architecture in the 1970s. And he would see solutions to problems. He would see designs that recurred over and over. And he said, okay, so these good designs that I see, I like this, they solve a certain problem. And he looked, what is the characteristic of the solution? If I could give the property that is given in the solution, then I can let the solution vary over times, right? So it's not a solution, it's a property. So the correct phrasing for design pattern is common characteristics of good examples of X. And that's why you have patterns for project management patterns, design patterns, you can have bicycling patterns, you can have cooking patterns. All of them are common characteristics of good examples of whatever it is you're talking about. I happen to collect project management patterns. That's my thing. So it's a property, and some like the one that he has that I like the most is a design pattern in architecture called light on 2 sides of a room. So you go into rooms now, you'll be ruined now forever. I go into rooms, and immediately I can tell if there's light on 2 sides of the room or not. And if there isn't, I never feel comfortable, because I've read this design pattern which says you will feel more comfortable if there's light on 2 sides of the room, right? But that's the property that's there. Other design pattern, composite. Composite means it's a thing made of a thing made of a thing, right? That's a composite decorator. And so the one I've got is a generalization of dependency injection. So it has been called inversion of control by Martin Fowler. and I love Martin Fowler, but that's a terrible name, because it means do it wrong and then turn it upside down. Why would I want to do that? So what is the property? It took me years. I mean, literally, I badgered my friends for years, and the final person who came up with the answer is Gerard Mazzaros. Shout out to Gerard Mazzaros, who, as far as I'm concerned, is the best patterns writer in the world. The guy, read his patterns, they're little tiny works of art. They're sweet. And so he said, look, what you really want, the property want, is that there's a dependency, and you want to be able to configure it. Right? We tried parameterized dependency. There's other ones you could use, but the one we settled on was configurable dependency. Now so that's kind of like dependency injection is the thing you do to achieve a configurable dependency, and the dependency injection strategy is one of the different ways of doing it. So it's a broader topic. And in particular, when you look at the left side and the right side of the hexagon, we're going to configure the dependencies differently. So the code on the left side is different than the code on the right side, and that's when I gave up and said, no, they're absolutely different things. So the hexagon has got a configurable dependency on the left side and the right side. So that's that, and if it's on the left side, you sometimes have like Spring Framework, and you've got a master module that knows the submodules, and sometimes you pass an argument into something and it stores it and it talks to that. So the right-hand side is going to look like that. Good. So the very first time I used this, and now I have to try to draw reading glasses all at the same time. So it's like, remember the Bourne Identity? And he was driving in Moscow, and he's got the maps of Moscow, and they're showing how good he is, right? Because he's driving, he's escaping, all of the police and everything, through tunnels and up subway steps, and he's got the map out, right? And he's unfolding the map and allegedly pretending to read the map of Russia, of Moscow, while he's driving, right? That's me right now, anyway. So here was the problem. The problem was that we were doing a project with Smalltalk and a relational database. So we had a database mapper. Of course, this was in the mid-90s, so we were writing everything, from fresh. And at some point, the guys who were doing the relational mapper said, I'm sorry, stop the project. It won't scale. We have to redesign. Everybody go home for 2 weeks. We said, we can't go home for 2 weeks. I said, look, just give us a way to fake the database. Like, we're just writing some tests. We'll put the test answers right in our code, right? We'll just put it in our application, and we'll have the test. It's called a loopback, or a shunt, or a mock, or an in-memory database, or one of those names. We didn't have those names at the time. I later called it a shunt. That wasn't the correct name. Called it a loopback, like in stereo systems. They have loopbacks in stereo systems, so I called it loopback. When Thomas programmed it, he called it a stub. He also has a mock, but they're all similar. Okay. It works.
It works.
Yeah. Oh, very good. Can you turn it off now, please? Thank you. So I made what I thought was a reasonable request. I said, can you just give us a way to we'll just give the answers. We don't need your database. We can keep making progress if you at least just let us kind of fake the database and get the answer. And they said, what are you talking about? No way. Everything was all gnarly built in together. You know that. There's absolutely no way that you can do it. So I was just going to draw it in that hexagonal way. Actually, the first time that it's ever happened, can we turn off the display projector, please? I love this. Hexagonal is a verb because he says his program is called Hexagonal This. Hexagonal This. So the first time that I ever ran across this, and I'm just going to draw this kind of hexagonal thing, was actually a project earlier. And I had been using Smalltalk, and we were doing something with network traffic and graphing network traffic. And we had the person typing stuff in and hand drawing something. And I said to my guy, I actually want to take that data off the network live. So we'll get we won't have 20 line drawings, we'll have 20,000 things. And he looked at me, and everybody looks at me like I've got grown horns and have extra heads. He looks at me like I grew horns and had extra heads. He said, of course I can't do that. What I was asking for, so if this is a network, there's supposed to be a camera focused on me broadcasting what I'm drawing. That's the technology we're after. Next step, got it. Carpaccio our way up here. So there's a network illustrator. You're still hired, right? You're still on the job, good man. And what we had an adapter here, which was a GUI, and we had a person entering some events. Now, language is important when you're playing with these things. How do you name these funny things? They're going to be called ports in the end. And the answer is, you answer the question, what is it for? And you'll get a verb in English which ends with ing, right? Present participle for you guys, right? So this interface here is for adding events. It's for adding events. It's purpose in life. So a port, if you will, is the intention of a dialogue. It's not the technology. You want to be absolutely technology neutral. You know nothing about the technology, you know the intention. The intention of this is for adding events. And I asked him, could you please take from a file, or even better, could you please take from the network itself those, and then put them out on a GUI so I can look at them, right? So the original thing that he had coded was this guy. He had a GUI in, GUI out, you type stuff in, it shows stuff. That's natural, but it was all locked in together, all gnarly. And when I said, hey, I have a great idea. Let's just graph the network events. And he looked at me like I had 3 heads. But that's what I wanted. You know, and then eventually you would want another thing and you would just dump it to a file. So that was chance 1. 2, the second one was, we had some object-oriented model down here. This is the one with the thing. And they had data coming from a disk. And the disk got all broken. So I asked if we could have a loopback. And they said, we think you have 3 heads. We did, however, at least have, oh, by the way, this is for showing graphics. This one is for showing pictures, right? So this is how you talk about ports or interfaces. You say what it's for. It's for something. Okay. Loop back, and then of course we had a test driver and we had a human driver, right? So every port, you should always have 2 things hooked to it. For testing, always 1, right? Now, given that we're going to project stuff, I'm tempted just to throw this stuff on the floor and pull it up if I need it. We'll find out in a moment if that works. What was the next one I was going to do? Loop back. Oh, the first time I got to do this for real, I have a friend named Mo Salim, and he's very smart, and he had a company, and they had a weather warning system. And he said, Alistair, I've got a problem because I have a telemetry feed here. I'm going to draw it my way. You'll see why he was stuck. I have a telemetry feed. Telemetry feed. I have an administrator who puts in the names of subscribers. We take a telemetry feed in the 90s, whatever technology it was, I have no idea what it was. We look up in our database the subscribers, and we send out to our subscribers, we send out a weather warning. So we send out a weather warning, and we send it to their phone. And this was the 90s, and these were analog telephone answering machines. So that all worked. He said the problem is, I am now getting RSS feeds, and I am getting HTTP feeds. And my problem is the way he had done it, he actually made a system, there's the weather warning system, and it was tied to an admin person and a telemetry and a phone and a disk, which he didn't notice was outside. And now his problem is he had to now make another system, which was an HTTP feed, to a phone. But the problem was those people were now getting HTTP. They wanted an RSS feed from the HTTP, except some people wanted a phone feed from the telemetry. He said, I have a problem here because now I actually want to make another program and make program-to-program calls, and I have got what? I've got 4 inputs and 4 outputs, right? I've got 16 combinations. I have to write and maintain 16 systems. Alistair, I'm going nuts. See, this is the normal way that people do it. You make it telemetry to phone. HTTP to phone, telemetry to phone, telemetry, and you go nuts. And I said, I don't understand the problem, because you have an interface here that's for all the admin stuff. By the way, you always throw a test on everything, so you always have one more. And you just do these adapters, and like, how do you care? You don't care how many you have. You don't care how many technologies you have. There's your app. Phone, HTTP, RSS, SMS, whatever the people want. You don't care. And he looked at me like I had 3 heads. But that's when I realized that this was really pretty serious stuff, because he needed it for his business. Right? So that one's for entering subscriber data, that one is for receiving weather information, that is for obtaining subscriber information, and that was for notifying. Okay? So you see, you speak it with the ing form. And there's multiple verbs. You can have all kinds of conversations with that. That's really cool. We just went through like 3 or 4 pages all at one time. I'm really happy. So I just want you to see that it's like super serious. Now the next time that this came up, we were just in class and we were doing a coffee machine. All right, so we had a coffee machine. So we had the user selecting a drink. And we had a table of some sort for obtaining prices and recipes. Prices and recipes. I know you can't read it, but you know what I'm saying, because I'm drawing it, right? And then we had a dispenser. So then we had dispensers. So we had drink dispensers. So this person would come, and this is the coffee machine. And I'll go get some recipes. And then from the recipe, then it would send out to dispensers, right? So that's cool. There's 3 ports on there, right? That's for dispensing. For dispensing. Yeah. The odd thing was, the next place I went to was a hospital system, and it turned out that they had something almost identical to a coffee machine. They had to do you know what the letters IV stand for? Intravenous, like in a hospital, put that thing inside you and give drugs. They had an IV dispenser controller, right? Guess what? An IV dispenser looks exactly like a coffee machine. You've got the nurse here who is going to, this is for administering or requesting some drug to go into the body. And then they go and get their, the data off of there. And what they're dispensing, it's still for dispensing, but now it's going to be drugs into the body. Okay? So there you see, now in this case by convention, I should keep it like next to me. By convention, people often draw the user on the, people draw systems that way, or sometimes people draw systems that way, right? You guys see that. So in a certain sense, I honor that, and I tend to do, when I'm drawing these things, I kind of split it diagonally. So we've got the left for things that are driving the system. So Thomas and I use the term driver. Let's see if this green one works just great. Otherwise I have to go back over there. Lousy. Okay. Let's get a new sheet. So in a sense, there's a system, there's your app, whatever your app or system is, and we call the things on the left, we call them drivers. So drivers are the things that are going to, push our system around. On the right, you've got two kinds of things, and it's important to keep them both in mind. You've got stuff, and I'll just put this for the moment, that are repositories. I'm writing the word repository. You might have a repository on this side, but sometimes you have just whatever. I have no idea what that is. It's just a notification, so you have a recipient. Right. So there's two kinds of things on the out, and I need one more hand. Could I have one more hand? It's all stuck together. Can you unstick that and just put that up there? So this is my friend Mo's weather warning system, and you'll see the drivers, the admin, the weather feed, they're coming in. There's a round trip information here for the database. So these are repositories. These are recipients. Okay? So you're going to have two kinds of things on the right. Repositories and recipients. Now, it turns out when I was looking at this thing, it finally worked out that these things match Ivar Jakobsen's definition of what is a primary actor and what is a secondary actor. Now, it turns out, and he uses these little stick figures, but his stick figure means I don't care if it's a computer or a person, so I'm just going to draw them with square heads, right? So square heads. That's my thing. I don't care if it's a computer or a person. It's a thing that interacts with the system. And so these things are both examples of these. Now, I've taught use cases, as some of you know, for a bunch of years. And people kept asking, what's the difference between a primary actor and a secondary actor? And it turns out the answer is only who initiates the conversation. If the app is some quiescent state, minding itself, doing nothing, and this person or thing kicks it with a triggering event and says, do something, then the definition is that's a primary actor. If the system over here is sitting there minding its own business, and our application kicks it into behavior, then that's a secondary actor. They can both be people, they can both be that, none of that matters. It's just a question of who triggers it. Well, it turns out when you go to code this up, and you're doing your configurable dependency, the one who does the triggering has to know the dependency. And so that gives us an asymmetry. Let me see what I have to say, and how are you guys doing? I'm about done over here. I'm going to next talk about what the problem is we're going to address, okay? All right, let's see here. Where is it? There we go. One second. So you guys okay on that left, right? Oh, I have to talk about the pizza shop. The pizza shop. So imagine, we're trying to understand the idea of these ports and things. And imagine you've got some sort of a pizza shop, and it's kind of takeaway, right? So there's a window over here. And somebody walks up and says, give me a pizza. Maybe you have a table there. And they pick up the table, so you order it. So you go to this window, and you don't care what the technology is of the people coming to the window. They could walk up there. They could take it in a brown paper bag and walk off with it. They could take it and sit at a table. It's all the same to you. In fact, they could order it over the internet. It's all the same to you. They could drive up in a car. It's all the same to you. It could be the boss who's only timing how long it takes for, this is the test case, right? Only timing how long it takes to get you the pizza and then throws the pizza over you. You don't care the technology of how an order comes in. You care. That window is for ordering pizzas. Now, on the back end, there's a window for talking to the people for obtaining a pizza. And you kind of don't care, because what happens is, it may be, I love this one, they could get you a pizza right away. It could be someone returned a pizza, and they just had it sitting there. You say, can we have a mushroom pizza? Yeah, I got a mushroom pizza right here. So they never cooked it. Right? That would be like a stub, right, or in some database. Or it could be the oven broke, but they have a good relationship with the pizza shop next door. So you say, give me a pepperoni pizza. And they run quickly next door and place an order for a pepperoni pizza. And they come back with a pepperoni pizza and pretend like it's their pizza. Right? You don't care. You have the port. You don't care the technology. You don't care the nothing. It's, right? Then the cook goes around to the front and orders a pizza. You can't come here. You're the cook. I want a pizza. Right? The cook changes from the moment the cook walks around to there, he becomes a customer. Right? You don't care if it's a sick, right? It's the purpose. The cook goes around there to order a pizza. We'll just say. All right. The problem we're going to tackle tonight. We are so prepared. Thank you. Thank you. I just have one more drawing to draw. So Thomas came up with this great kata, and allegedly I have a drawing of it. I'm in trouble, right? Here it is. So here's what we're going to do. He's going to do a thing called a poetry reader. We're going to have one port over here, which is for requesting poetry. And that's going to be the driver, right? That's our driver over here. And he's going to have a repository over here. And it's going to be, it's going to be something. So this port over here is for obtaining poems. Okay. Now here's the thing that's super important for you guys. The first adapter we're going to make is going to be a test case. So the first adapter is your test harness. That's your test harness. We're going to drive this with a test case. So I learned this probably from Ron Jeffries and the extreme programming people. And I said, the test case is also a user of your system. And he said, the test case is the first user of the system. So this is the thing that was a jump for Thomas. He hadn't seen that the test case is in fact a legitimate driver with a legitimate adapter. Yeah, it's very important. You're going to see that. The moment he makes an adapter and a clean thing here for the poetry reader, the left sign is instantiated. He's done. The next thing he's going to do, and he's going to, by the way, he's going to hard code. His first one, he's going to hard code some poetry right there, so we don't have to even touch the right-hand side. The next thing he's going to do is a stub, and he's going to put some hard-coded stuff in there, and that's going to be the first repository. What you have to understand is at that moment, the hexagon is complete. We're done. Alistair's happy, you do anything you want now. What he's going to do next, and we just debated, like, what should he do, what should he do? We're going to put a console there. So he's going to put a console there. And then he's going to drive. And now he has his choice. He could get the hard-coded answer, he could get the stuff. And then he's going to put a file. He's going to get it from a file. So he's going to show you two technologies on either side. And the sequence of implementation is going to be like this. If I've got it right, I'll just do this. So number one, we're going to have a test case. That's the driver here. Driver. repository. First one will be test case. That will be a hard-coded something. And that won't exist. The second one will be the test case. That will be a pass-through, and that will give an answer. He'll put a stub there. Now, we're going to pause when we get to that point and have a little celebration, because actually we've instantiated with very few lines of code the hexagonal architecture. So my goal here is to have you understand, like, why does this thing exist and what's the point? His goal tonight is to show you how simple it is. The moment you have that, you're done. You have it. So the next thing he's going to do, because he's a test freak, is he's going to do a console, but he's not going to do the console, he's going to do a console test case. And then he's going to make the real console. And then, if we have time, that'll be a pass-through and still with a stub. So now we've substituted on that side. And now, the last one that we'll do is, and then I'll let him choose, because I don't particularly worry. I don't care. Test case or console, that's up to him. He could choose that at the last second or change it. Pass through and bringing it in from the file system, and then we'll have all four. And at that point, you just